I definitely can't be awake. It's obviously bedtime, so I must be sleeping. But that means I'm dreaming about hanging out with all of you, so it's a pretty good dream. Hello, everybody. I'm glad you're here. Did I pull things out? No, I think we're okay. All right. Adjusted my chair and I caught a cord. I have the terrible spaghetti monster of doom underneath my desk. The rat's nest of cables and cabling, which somehow all resulted from me drilling holes in the desk to try and make the cable management better. I feel like something went terribly, terribly wrong in this process. I'm fairly certain it was supposed to improve the situation. Ah, well. In any case, today we're going to be reading Murder on the Links. We will not, hey little dude, we will not be doing a magic stream afterward, though. I've decided that those are going to be Fridays and Saturdays only. I stayed up way too late playing Magic, and frankly, not very many people seem to be interested at that time slot yesterday, so I'm not going to kill myself staying up all night to not get any views or any interest. I hope you guys can understand that. Oh, how is everyone today? How are you, little dude? Are you ready to see if Hastings comes to his senses or continues to, lose his mind over every girl that comes on in his path? Let me tell you, when you get older, do not let the girls turn your heads like that. Stick to what your mom and your dad taught you was right. It's important. There are people out there of all genders that will try to trick you into doing stuff that's wrong. So I looked at that picture that J-Math posted. Good. I'm glad he doesn't understand it yet. Let's keep with that for as long as possible. Wish my kid didn't understand liking people. I'm not eating French toast. I may have quickly tried to scarf a sandwich before the stream. I need to take some meds, and because I forgot to do so earlier. And I gotta have something on my stomach or it hurts terribly because they cause my stomach to cramp. So, scarf. Well, it's because I tried to take a nap earlier so that, I could be awake for the stream. But there, I just took them. Can't be mad at me now. Anyway, I picked a fun poem for us today. We're going to read Jabberwocky as the opening poem. It's silly and ridiculous and absolutely one of my favorite poems. Probably because it's silly and ridiculous. Not that it would make sense for me to like something like that. I'm sure nobody believes I would like something silly or ridiculous. Totally out of character. All right. And I'll take some congestion meds too. Why would I put that on a sandwich? It was a little crunching because of the fresh lettuce, but why would you do that? Is that like a weird American thing? with fresh lettuce or crispy bacon or something like that, sure. Or for some types of sandwiches, fresh sliced cucumbers, or maybe even like a crispy pickle. But crisps? Why would you put crisps on a sandwich? Yuck. Okay, so little dude, I was wrong. Not everything that your parents teach you is right. If they tell you to put crisps on your sandwiches, you give them that same look you gave her when I was talking about, guys and girls leading you astray. Look at her like she's a crazy person, because it's a crazy person thing to do. Weird. Sorry, let me mute this. Hey J-Man, thanks for the lurk. I checked out that picture of the Captain Crunch French toast you posted. Looks amazing except for one minor detail. It's French toast. Make those waffles, but put the same toppings and stuff on them, and I am sold. But yeah, I can't do French toast because French toast is contaminated with evil. And by the evil, I mean cinnamon. Cinnamon is my mortal foe and enemy. Has been for many years now. It dealt me a mortal wound ages ago, and I've never really recovered. So, on to the readings. Jabberwocky and then Murder on the Links. 'Twas brillig, and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All mimsy were the borogoves, and the momraths outgrabe. Beware the Jabberwock, my son, the jaws that bite, the claws that catch. Beware the jujube bird, and shun the frumious bandersnatch. He took his vorpal sword in hand, long time the maxim foe he sought. So rested he by the tum-tum tree, and stood a while in thought. And, as in uffish thought he stood, the Jabberwock, with eyes of flame, came whiffling through the tulgey wood, and burbled as it came. 1, 2, 1, 2, and through, the vorpal blade went snicker-snack. He left it dead, and with its head he went galumphing back. And hast thou slain the Jabberwock? Come to my arms, my beamish boy. O frabjulous day, callooh, callay, he chortled in his joy. 'Twas brillig, and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All mimsy were the borogoves, and the momraths outgrabe. Love that poem. Short, but awesome. Of course, you know me. I just love words that are like fun to say and fun sounds and stuff. What was it Random put in the bot? Great chewy sentences. I can do nutmeg. Nutmeg is fine. Cinnamon is not fine. Hello, Sparky. Welcome. I'm glad you made it. Murder on the Links. We're 80% done with Murder on the Links. So we might even finish it today. It'd be 2 books in 2 days finished. By the way, I absolutely need suggestions if we're going to do another Conan book or something else to read in that time slot. And I'll need suggestions for a mystery to read for today's time slot. Probably next week if we finish this one today. So please jump in the Discord, go to the book request channel, and type in some book requests. So I've got some options to consider. Ew, don't do that, Vela. There's nothing right with what you're talking about there. This is just, no, ew, gross. Please don't do that. Ugh. Ugh. Chapter 24. Hey, Alex, welcome. Vela's trying to gross me out with weird Americanisms. She puts crisps on her sandwiches. What is wrong with her? You are my second favorite fanboy, Alex. I'm afraid little dude has top spot. Well, unless you make a pillow for it. If you also make a pillow for it, you can tie him. So if you send me a picture of you listening to the stream, sitting in your pillow fort in your pad, then I'm sold. You can be tied for number one spot. We crossed from England by the evening boat, and the following morning saw us in Saint-Omer, whither Jacques Renaud had been taken. Perrault lost no time in visiting Monsieur Hotet. As he did not seem disposed to make any objections to my accompanying him, I bore him company. You're all so weird. All you weird Americans. Unless I'm the weird one and everybody else in the world puts crisps on sandwiches, but it just seems really, really weird and gross to me. Maybe we should do a poll on the next stream. Do crisps belong on sandwiches or on the plate next to them? After various formalities and preliminaries, we were conducted to the examining magistrate's room. He greeted us cordially. I was told that you had returned to England, Monsieur Perrault. I am glad to find that such is not the case. I don't know about that, Vela. It is true that I went there, Monsieur le Juge, but it was only for a flying visit. A side issue, but one that I fancied might repay investigation. And it did, eh? Perrault shrugged his shoulders. Monsieur Hotet nodded, sighing. We must resign ourselves, I fear. That animal, Girard, his manners are abominable, but he is undoubtedly clever. Not much chance of that one making a mistake. You think not, Monsieur le Juge? It was the examining magistrate's turn to shrug his shoulders. Eh bien, speaking frankly and in confidence, c'est entendu, can you come to any other conclusion? Frankly, Monsieur le Juge, there seem to me to be many points that are obscure. Such as? But Perrault was not to be drawn. I have not yet tabulated him, he remarked. It was a general reflection that I was making. I liked the young man and should be sorry to believe him guilty of such a hideous crime. By the way, what has he to say on himself for the matter? The magistrate frowned. I cannot understand him. He seems incapable of putting up any sort of defense. It has been most difficult to get him to answer questions. He contents himself with a general denial, and beyond that takes refuge in a most obstinate silence. I am interrogating him again tomorrow. Perhaps you would like to be present? We accepted the invitation with empressement. A distressing case, said the magistrate with a sigh. My sympathy for Madame Renaud is profound. How is Madame Renaud? She has not yet recovered consciousness. It is merciful in a way. Poor woman, she is being spared much. The doctors say that there is no danger, but that when she comes to herself, she must be kept as quiet as possible. It was, I understand, quite as much the shock as the fall which caused her present state. It would be terrible if her brain became unhinged, but I should not wonder at all. No, really not at all. Monsieur Hotet leaned back, shaking his head with a sort of mournful enjoyment as he envisaged the gloomy prospect. He roused himself at length and observed with a start, That reminds me, I have here a letter for you, Monsieur Perrault. Let me see, where did I put it? He proceeded to rummage amongst his papers. At last he found the missive and handed it to Perrault. It was sent under cover to me in order that I might forward it to you, he explained. But, as you left no address, I could not do so. Poirot studied the letter curiously. It was addressed in a long, sloping foreign hand, and the writing was decidedly a woman's. Poirot did not open it. Instead, he put it in his pocket and rose to his feet. "À demain, then, monsieur le juge. Many thanks for your courtesy and amiability." "But not at all. I am always at your service. These young detectives of the school of Girard, they're all alike, rude, sneering fellows. They do not realize that an examining magistrate of my experience is bound to have a certain discernment, a certain flair. Enfin, the politeness of the old school is infinitely more to my taste. Therefore, my dear friend, command me in any way that you will. We know a thing or two, you and I, eh?" And laughing heartily, enchanted with himself and with us, Monsieur Hotet bade us adieu. I am sorry to have to record that Poirot's first remark to me as we traversed the corridor was, "A famous imbecile, that one, of a stupidity to make pity." We were just leaving the building when we came face to face with Girard, looking more dandified than ever, and thoroughly pleased with himself. "Aha, Monsieur Poirot," he cried airily. "You have returned from England, then?" "As you see," said Poirot. "The end of the case is not far off now, I fancy." "I agree with you, Monsieur Girard." Poirot spoke in a subdued tone. His crestfallen manner seemed to delight the other. "Of all the milk-and-water criminals, not an idea of defending himself. It is extraordinary." "So extraordinary that it gives one to think, does it not?" suggested Poirot mildly. But Girard was not even listening. He twirled his cane amicably. "Well, good day, Monsieur Poirot. I am glad you're satisfied of young Renaud's guilt at last." "Pardon, but I am not in the least satisfied. Jack Renaud is innocent." Girard stood for a moment, then burst out laughing, tapping his head significantly with the brief remark, "Toqué." Poirot drew himself up. A dangerous light showed in his eyes. "Monsieur Girard, throughout the case your manner to me has been deliberately insulting. You need teaching a lesson. I am prepared to wager you 500 francs that I find the murderer of Monsieur Renaud before you do. Is it agreed?" Girard stared helplessly at him and murmured again, "Toqué." "I have no idea what that means. Anybody speak French?" "Come now," urged Poirot. "Is it agreed? I have no wish to take your money from you. Make your mind easy. You will not." "Oh, well, then I agree. You speak of my manner to you being insulting. Eh bien, once or twice your manner has annoyed me." "I am enchanted to hear it," said Poirot. "Good morning, Monsieur Girard. Come, Hastings." Apparently the whole Bilbo good morning people is much more common than I thought it was. As we've found several books now where people have been good morninged in much the same manner that Bilbo did in The Hobbit. I said no word as we walked along the street. My heart was heavy. Poirot displayed his intentions only too plainly. I doubted more than ever my powers of saving Bella from the consequences of her act. This unlucky encounter with Girard had roused Poirot and put him on his mettle. Suddenly, I felt a hand laid on my shoulder, and I turned to face Gabriel Stoner. We stopped and greeted him, and he proposed strolling with us back to our hotel. It is spelled Toque with an accent on the E. "And what are you doing here, Monsieur Stoner?" inquired Poirot. "One must stand by one's friends," replied the other dryly, "especially when they are unjustly accused." "Then you do not believe that Jack Renaud committed the crime?" I asked eagerly. "Certainly I don't. I know the lad. I admit that there have been one or two things in this business that have staggered me completely. But nonetheless, in spite of his fool way of taking it, I'll never believe that Jack Renaud is a murderer." My heart warmed to the secretary. His words seemed to lift a secret weight from my heart. I have no doubt that many people feel as you do, I exclaimed. There is really absurdly little evidence against him. I should say that there was no doubt of his acquittal. No doubt whatever. But Stoner hardly responded as I could have wished. I'd give a lot to think as you do, he said gravely. He turned to Perrault. What's your opinion, monsieur? I think that things look very black against him, said Perrault quietly. You believe him guilty, said Stoner sharply. No, but I think he will find it hard to prove his innocence. Cracked, so he's saying he's crazy. Okay. Yeah, I can see where that would make Perrault a little upset. Saying he's crazy and cracked in the head. He's behaving so damned queerly, muttered Stoner. Of course I realize that there's a lot more in this affair than meets the eye. Gerard's not wise to that because he's an outsider, but the whole thing has been damned odd. As to that, least said, soonest mended. If Madame Renaud wants to hush anything up, I'll take my cue from her. It's her show, and I have too much respect for her judgment to shove my oar in. But I can't get behind this attitude of Jack's. Anyone would think he wanted to be thought guilty. But it's absurd, I cried, bursting in. For one thing, the dagger. Here goes Hastings, just revealing details of the case. I paused, uncertain as to how much Perrault would wish me to reveal. I continued, choosing my words carefully. We know that the dagger could not have been in Jack Renaud's possession that evening. Mrs. Renaud knows that. True, said Stoner. When she recovers, she will doubtless say all this and more. Well, I must be leaving you. One moment. Perrault's hand arrested his departure. Can you arrange for word to be sent to me at once, should Madame Renaud recover consciousness? Certainly. That's easily done. That point about the dagger is good, Perrault, I urged as we went upstairs. I couldn't speak very plainly before Stoner. That was quite right of you. We might as well keep the knowledge to ourselves as long as we can. As to the dagger, your point hardly helps Jack Renaud. You remember that I was absent for an hour this morning before we started from London? Yes. Well, I was employed in trying to find the firm Jack Renaud employed to convert his souvenirs. It was not very difficult. Eh bien, Hastings, they made to his order not 2 paper knives, but 3. So that after giving one to his mother and one to Bella Duveen, there was a third which he doubtless retained for his own use. No, Hastings, I fear the dagger question will not help us to save him from the guillotine. It won't come to that, I cried, stung. Perrault shook his head uncertainly. You will save him, I cried positively. Perrault glanced at me dryly. Have you not rendered it impossible, mon ami? Some other way, I muttered. Ah, sapristi, but it is miracles you ask from me. No, say no more. Let us instead see what is in this letter. And he drew out the envelope from his breast pocket. His face contracted as he read. Then he handed the one flimsy sheet to me. There are other women in the world who suffer, Hastings. The writing was blurred, and the note had evidently been written in great agitation. Dear Monsieur Perrault, if you get this, I beg of you to come to my aid. I have no one to turn to, and at all costs Jack must be saved. I implore of you on my knees to help us. Martha de Breuil. I handed it back, moved. You will go? At once. We will command an auto. Half an hour later saw us at the Villa Marguerite. Martha was at the door to meet us, and led Perrault in, clinging with both hands to one of his. Ah, you have come. It is good of you. I have been in despair, not knowing what to do. They will not even let me go see him in prison even. I suffer horribly. I'm nearly mad. Is it true what they say, that he does not deny the crime? That is madness. It is impossible that he should have done it. Never for one moment will I believe it. Neither do I believe it, mademoiselle, said Perrault gently. But then why does he not speak? I do not understand. Perhaps because he is screening someone, suggested Perrault, watching her. Martha frowned. Screening someone? Do you mean his mother? Ah, from the beginning I have suspected her. Who inherits all that vast fortune? She does. It is easy to wear widow's weeds and play the hypocrite. And they say that when he was arrested she fell down like that. She made a dramatic gesture. And without doubt, Monsieur Stoner, the secretary, he helped her. They are thick as thieves, those two. It is true she is older than he, but what do men care if a woman is rich? There was a hint of bitterness in her tone. Stoner was in England, I put in. He says so, but who knows? Mademoiselle, said Perrault quietly, if we are to work together, you and I, we must have things clear. First, I will ask you a question. Yes, monsieur? Are you aware of your mother's real name? Martha looked at him for a minute. Then, letting her head fall forward on her arms, she burst into tears. There, there, said Perrault, patting her on the shoulder. Calm yourself, petite. I see that you know. Now, a second question. Did you know who Monsieur Renaud was? Monsieur Renaud? She raised her head from her hands and gazed at him wonderingly. Ah, I see you do not know that. Now listen to me carefully. Step by step he went over the case, much as he had done to me on the day of our departure for England. Martha listened spellbound. When he had finished, she drew a long breath. But you are wonderful, magnificent. You are the greatest detective in the world. With a swift gesture, she slipped off her chair and knelt before him with an abandonment that was wholly French. Save him, monsieur, she cried. I love him so. Oh, save him! Save him! Save him! Chapter 25. 1 sec while I take a drink. All right, sorry about that. Chapter 25. An unexpected denouement. We were present the following morning at the examination of Jacques Renaud. Short as the time had been, I was shocked at the change that had taken place in the young prisoner. His cheeks had fallen in. There were deep black circles round his eyes, and he looked haggard and distraught, as one who has wooed sleep in vain for several nights. He betrayed no emotion at seeing us. The prisoner and his counsel, Maître Grossier, were accommodated with chairs. A formidable guard with resplendent saber stood before the door. The patient, this is a new one for me, Greffier. The patient, Greffier, sat at his desk. The examination began. Renaud, began the magistrate, do you deny that you were in Merlinville on the night of the crime? Jack did not reply at once, then said with a hesitancy of manner which was piteous, I told you I was in Cherbourg. Maître Grossier frowned and sighed. I realized at once that Jacques Renaud was obstinately bent on conducting his own case as he wished, to the despair of his legal representative. The magistrate turned sharply. Send in the station witnesses. In a moment or two, the door opened to admit a man whom I recognized as being a porter at Merlinville Station. You were on duty on the night of June the 7th? Yes, monsieur. You witnessed the arrival of the 11:40 train? Yes, monsieur. Look at the prisoner. Do you recognize him as having been one of the passengers to alight? Yes, monsieur le juge. There is no possibility of you being mistaken. No, monsieur. I know monsieur Jacques Renaud well. Nor of you being mistaken as to the date? No, monsieur, because it was the following morning, June 8th, that we heard of the murder. Another railway official was brought in, and confirmed the first one's evidence. The magistrate looked at Jacques Renaud. These men have identified you positively. What have you to say? Jack shrugged his shoulders. Nothing. Monsieur Hotet. Hey, tacos and burritos. Thank you for the follow. That's awesome. Welcome to the stream. Monsieur Hotet exchanged a glance with the greffier as the scratching of the latter's pen recorded the answer. Renaud, continued the magistrate, do you recognize this? I mean, I love tacos and burritos too, so I can't say anything but good things about the name choice. We actually have several people that let their kids listen to this. I've got lots of recordings of stuff available on the Twitch as VODs and also on the YouTube as well. So, thank you. Thank you very much. Might be blushing a little bit now. All right. He took something from the table by his side and held it out to the prisoner. I shuddered as I recognized the aeroplane dagger. Pardon, cried Maitre Grossier. I demand to speak to my client before he answers that question. But Jacques Renaud had no consideration for the feelings of the wretched Grossier. He waved him aside and replied quietly. Certainly I recognize it. It is a present given me by me to my mother as a souvenir of the war. Is there, as far as you know, any duplicate of that dagger in existence? Again, Maitre Grossier burst out, and again Jack overrode him. No, I think the bedtime community is just fine. Also glad to see you, Random. I'm glad you're here. You're not hiding really good tacos and burritos from me, are you, Vela? I know, you don't always chat, but I'm glad you're here. Very glad. Not that I know of. The setting was my own design. Even the magistrate almost gasped at the boldness of the reply. It did, in very truth, seem as though Jack was rushing on his fate. I realized, of course, the vital necessity he was under of concealing, for Bella's sake, the fact that there was a duplicate dagger in the case. So long as there was supposed to be only one weapon, no suspicion was likely to attach to the girl who had had the second paper knife in her possession. He was valiantly shielding the woman he had once loved, but at what a cost to himself. I began to realize the magnitude of the task I had so lightly set Perrault. It would not be easy to secure the acquittal of Jacques Renaud by anything short of the truth. Monsieur Hotet spoke again, with a peculiarly biting inflection. Madame Renaud told us that this dagger was on her dressing table on the night of the crime. But Madame Renaud is a mother. It will doubtless astonish you, Renaud, but I consider it highly likely that Madame Renaud was mistaken, and that, by inadvertence perhaps, you had taken it with you to Paris. Doubtless you will contradict me. I saw the lad's handcuffed hands clench themselves. The perspiration stood out in beads upon his brow, as with a supreme effort he interrupted Monsieur Hotet in a hoarse voice. I shall not contradict you. It is possible. Hey, Positive Vibes, thank you for the follow. Glad to see the new people coming and checking out the stream. That's awesome. It was a stupefying moment. Maitre Grossier rose to his feet, protesting. My client has undergone a considerable nervous strain. I should wish it put on record that I do not consider him answerable for what he says. The magistrate quelled him angrily. For a moment, a doubt seemed to arise in his own mind. Jacques Renaud had almost overdone his part. He leaned forward and gazed at the prisoner searchingly. Do you fully understand, Renaud, that on the answers you have given me, I shall have no alternative but to commit you for trial? Jack's pale face flushed. He looked steadily back. Monsieur Hotet, I swear that I did not kill my father. But the magistrate's brief moment of doubt was over. He laughed a short, unpleasant laugh. Without doubt, they are always innocent, our prisoners. By your own mouth you are condemned. You can offer no defense, no alibi, only a mere assertion which would not deceive a babe that you are not guilty. You killed your father, Renaud. Cruel and cowardly murder, for the sake of money which you believed would come to you at his death. Your mother was an accessory after the fact. Doubtless, in view of the fact that she acted as a mother, the courts will extend an indulgence to her that they will not accord to you. And rightly so. Your crime was a horrible one, to be held in abhorrence by gods and men. Monsieur Hotet was enjoying himself, working up to his period, steeped in the solemnity of the moment, and his own role as representative of justice. You killed, and you must pay the consequences of your action. I speak to you, not as a man, but as justice, eternal justice, which— Monsieur Hotet was interrupted, to his intense annoyance. The door was pushed open. Monsieur le juge, stammered the attendant. There is a lady who says— Who says what? Cried the justly incensed magistrate. This is highly irregular. I forbid it. I absolutely forbid it. But a slender figure pushed the stammering gendarme aside. Dressed all in black, with a long veil that hid her face, she advanced into the room. Well, it doesn't matter what time it is. It's obviously bedtime. My heart gave a sickening throb. She had come then. All my efforts were in vain. Yet I could not but admire the courage that had led her to take this step so unfalteringly. She raised her veil, and I gasped, for, though as like her as two peas, this girl was not Cinderella. On the other hand, now that I saw her without the fair wig she had worn on the stage, I recognized her as the girl of the photograph in Jacques Renaud's room. You are the juge d'instruction, Monsieur Hotet? She queried. Yes, but I forbid. My name is Bella Duveen. I wish to give myself up for the murder of Monsieur Renaud. It's all Alex's fault. That he came over and is listening to the stream. I'm okay with that. Chapter 26. And I do hope all of you new people will come and join the Discord and hang out with us and connect with the community there. The link's in the chat right now. Wait. He's... Okay. Cool. I didn't see a host notification. Or do you mean that, like, he's playing his game, but he's got me on in the background? Either way, that's really cool, Alex. Thank you. All right. Chapter 26. I receive a letter. My friend, you will know all when you get this. Nothing that I can say will move Bella. She has gone out to give herself up. I'm tired out with struggling. You will know now that I deceived you, that where you gave me trust, I repaid you with lies. It will seem, perhaps, indefensible to you, but I should like, before I go out of your life forever, to show you just how it all came about. If I knew that you forgave me, it would make life easier for me. It wasn't for myself that I did it. That's the only thing I can put forward to say for myself. I'll begin from the day I met you in the boat train from Paris. I was uneasy then about Bella. She was just desperate about Jacques Renaud. She'd have lain down on the ground for him to walk on, and when he began to change, and to stop writing so often, she began getting in a state. She got it into her head that he was keen on another girl. And of course, as it turned out afterwards, she was quite right there. She'd made up her mind to go to their villa at Merlinville, and to try and see Jack. She knew I was against it, and tried to give me the slip. I found she was not on the train at Calais, and determined I would not go on to England without her. I had an uneasy feeling that something awful was going to happen if I couldn't prevent it. I met the next train from Paris. She was on it and set upon going out then and there to Merlinville. I argued with her for all I was worth, but it wasn't any good. She was all strung up and set upon having her own way. Well, I washed my hands of it. I'd done all I could. It was getting late. I went to a hotel and Bella started for Merlinville. I still couldn't shake off my feeling of what the books call impending disaster. The next day came, but no Bella. She'd made a date with me to meet at the hotel, but she didn't keep it. No sign of her all day. I got more and more anxious. Then came an evening paper with the news. It was awful. I couldn't be sure, of course, but I was terribly afraid. I figured it out that Bella had met Papa Renaud and told him about her and Jack and that he'd insulted her or something like that. We both got terribly quick tempers. Then all the Bast Foreigner business came out, and I began to feel more at ease. But it still worried me that Bella hadn't kept her date with me. By the next morning, I was so rattled that I'd just got to go and see what I could. First thing, I ran up against you. You know all that. When I saw the dead man, looking so like Jack and wearing Jack's fancy overcoat, I knew. And there was the identical paper knife, wicked little thing, that Jack had given to Bella. 10 to 1 it had her finger marks on it. I can't hope to explain to you the sort of helpless horror of that moment. I only saw one thing clearly. I must get hold of that dagger and get right away with it before they found out it was gone. I pretended to faint, and whilst you were away getting water, I took the thing and hid it away in my dress. I told you that I was staying at the Hotel du Phare, but of course, really I made a beeline back to Calais, and then on to England by the first boat. When we were in mid-channel, I dropped that little devil of a dagger into the sea. Then I felt I could breathe again. Bella was at our digs in London. She looked like nothing on God's earth. I told her what I'd done and that she was pretty safe for the time being. She stared at me and then began laughing. It was horrible to hear her. I felt that the best thing to do was to keep busy. She'd go mad if she had time to brood on what she'd done. Luckily, we got an engagement at once. And then I saw you and your friend watching us that night. I was frantic. You must suspect, or you wouldn't have tracked us down. I had to know the worst, so I followed you. I was desperate. And then, before I'd had any time to say anything, I tumbled to it that it was me you suspected, not Bella. Or at least that you thought I was Bella since I'd stolen the dagger. I might. I'll change it at the intermission in like 10 minutes. I wish, honey, that you could see back into my mind at that moment. You'd forgive me. Perhaps. I was so frightened and muddled and desperate. All I could get clearly was that you would try and save me. I didn't know whether you'd be willing to save her. I thought very likely not. It wasn't the same thing. And I couldn't risk it. Bella's my twin. I've got to do the best for her. So I went on lying. I felt mean. I feel mean still. That's all. Enough too, you'll say, I expect. I ought to have trusted you. If I had. As soon as the news was in the paper that Jack Renaud had been arrested, it was all up. Bella wouldn't even wait to see how things went. I'm very tired. I can't write any more. She had begun to sign herself Cinderella, but had crossed that out and written and said, Dulce Divine. It was an ill-written, blurred epistle, but I have kept it to this day. Perrault was with me when I read it. The sheets fell from my hand, and I looked across at him. Did you know all the time that it was the other? Yes, my friend. Why did you not tell me? To begin with, I could hardly believe it conceivable that you could make such a mistake. You had seen the photograph. The sisters are very alike, but by no means incapable of distinguishment. But the fair hair. A wig, worn for the sake of a piquant contrast on the stage. Is it conceivable that with twins one should be fair and one dark? Why didn't you tell me that night at the hotel in Coventry? You were rather high-handed in your methods, mon ami, said Perrault dryly. You did not give me a chance. But afterwards. Afterwards. Well, to begin with, I was hurt at your want of faith in me. And then I wanted to see whether your feelings would stand the test of time. In fact, whether it was love or a flash in the pan with you. I should not have left you long in your error. I nodded. His tone was too affectionate for me to bear resentment. I looked down on the sheets of the letter. Suddenly I picked them up from the floor and pushed them across to him. Read that, I said. I'd like you to. He read through it in silence. Then he looked up at me. What is it that worries you, Hastings? This was quite a new mood in Perot. His mocking manner seemed laid quite aside. I was able to say what I wanted without too much difficulty. She doesn't say, well, not whether she cares for me or not. Perot turned back the pages. I think you are mistaken, Hastings. Where? I cried, leaning forward eagerly. Perot smiled. She tells you that in every line of the letter, mon ami. But where am I to find her? There's no address on the letter. There's a French stamp, that's all. Excite yourself not. Leave it to Papa Perot. I can find her for you as soon as I have 5 little minutes. All right. Let's go ahead and take a quick intermission here. I know it's slightly early. If you're drinking tea or something like that, warm it up. Kick back. Run and get a sandwich if you need to, J-Math, since I know you get hungry sometimes during stream. Stand up and stretch if you need to. I'm going to go ahead and change that mature rating back over, since it shouldn't be set to mature right now. After all, we're all about immaturity in this stream, right? Preferences. Mature content off. All right. All fixed, fella. All better. Oh, and I believe I owe all of you a question. So, for those of you that are new, we are doing a giveaway with our stream. And we're doing kind of a trivia scavenger hunt kind of a thing. So, what we do is the previous month's streams and associated content materials, like anything to do with the Discord for the stream itself, stuff on Twitch, on the calendar, basically anything is fair game. So you might have to like search for it a little bit. And stuff that's in the books as read is also fair game. So you may have to go through like the stream and read it and listen to it. But all the VODs are available. They're on YouTube or on Twitch. And the links to the calendar and stuff like that are in the Discord. Discord links are on the screen. So you can find all the material pretty easily. You have until the end of the month to submit your answer to me on Discord for each question. You need to include the question and the answer in your message. The first correct answer gets a bonus point. But other than that, I'll tabulate all the points at the end of the month. And then the reward is 1 or more games that our community plays on Steam. So you'll get at least 1, possibly multiple games on Steam as a reward if you're the winner. So the question for today is, who was the first person to join the Bedtime Discord? After me, obviously. I don't mean who created it, but who was the first person to join the Bedtime Discord? So that's today's scavenger hunt question. So I'll hopefully get some answers from you guys in the DMs. And as I said, first correct answer gets a bonus point. I'm going to also post a list of the other questions that we've asked, but they are also available on the last couple of VODs. Anything for this first one from the very first stream that I did up until the last stream of December is fair game. Following months, it'll be just the previous month. So anything we do here in January will be fair game for the February giveaway. And we'll do one giveaway a month going forward. So chance to interact a little more with the community and play the games with us, even if maybe you're a little tight on cash, which frankly I think everybody is with the way the last year's gone. But unless anybody has something to ask 8-Ball, I think we'll dive back into the story and try to finish up Murder on the Links today. Take that as a no. So, back to the story we go. Chapter 27, Jack Renault's story. Congratulations, Monsieur Jack, said Perrault, wringing the lad warmly by the hand. Young Renault had come to us as soon as he was liberated, before starting to Merlinville to rejoin Martha and his mother. Stoner accompanied him. His heartiness was in strong contrast to the lad's wan looks. It was plain that the boy was on the verge of a nervous breakdown. Although delivered from the immediate peril that was hanging over him, the circumstances of his release were too painful to let him feel full relief. He smiled mournfully at Perrault and said in a low voice, I went through it to protect her, and now it's all no use. You could hardly expect the girl to accept the price of your life, remarked Stoner dryly. She was bound to come forward when she saw you heading straight for the guillotine. Eh, ma foi, and you were heading for it too, added Perrault with a slight twinkle. You would have had Maitre Groschier's death from rage on your conscience if you had gone on. He was a well-meaning ass, I suppose, said Jack, but he worried me horribly. You see, I couldn't very well take him into my confidence. But my God, what's going to happen about Bella? If I were you, said Perrault frankly, I should not distress myself unduly. The French courts are very lenient to youth and beauty, and the crime passionnel. A clever lawyer will make out a great case of extenuating circumstances. It will not be pleasant for you. I don't care about that. You see, Monsieur Perrault, in a way I do feel guilty of my father's murder. But for me and my entanglement with this girl, he would be alive and well today. And then, my cursed carelessness in taking away the wrong overcoat. I can't help feeling responsible for his death. It will haunt me forever. No, no, I said soothingly. Of course it's horrible to me to think that Bella killed my father, resumed Jack, but I had treated her shamefully. After I met Martha, and realized I'd made a mistake, I ought to have written and told her so honestly. But I was so terrified of a row, and of its coming to Martha's ears, and her thinking there was more in it than there ever had been, that, well, I was a coward, and went on hoping the thing would die down of itself. I just drifted, in fact, not realizing I was driving the poor kid desperate. If she'd really knifed me, as she meant to, I should have got no more than my deserts. And the way she's come forward now is downright plucky. I'd have stood the racket, you know, up to the end. He was silent for a moment or two, and then burst out on another tack. What gets me is why the governor should be wandering about in underclothes and by overcoat at that time of night. I suppose he'd just given the foreign Johnnies the slip, and my mother must have made a mistake about its being 2:00 when they came up. Or it wasn't all a frame-up, was it? I mean, my mother couldn't think that it was me. Perrault reassured him quickly. No, no, Monsieur Jacques. Have no fears on that score. As for the rest, I will explain to you one of these days. It is rather curious. But will you recount to us exactly what did occur on that terrible evening? There's very little to tell. I came from Cherbourg, as I told you, in order to see Martha before going to the other side of the world. The train was late, and I decided to take the shortcut across the golf links. I could easily get into the grounds of the Villa Marguerite from there. I had nearly reached the place when... He paused and swallowed. Yes? I heard a terrible cry. It wasn't loud, a sort of choke and gasp, but it frightened me. For a moment I stood rooted to the spot. Then I came round the corner of a bush. There was moonlight. I saw the grave and a figure lying face downwards, with a dagger sticking in the back. And then I looked up and saw her. She was looking at me as though she saw a ghost. It's what she must have thought at first. All expression seemed frozen out of her face by horror. And then she gave a cry and turned and ran. He stopped, trying to master his emotion. And afterwards, asked Poirot gently. I really don't know. I stayed there for a time dazed. And then I realized I'd better get away as fast as I could. It didn't occur to me that they would suspect me, but I was afraid of being called upon to give evidence against her. I walked to St. Beauvoir, as I told you, and got a car from there back to Cherbourg. A knock came at the door, and a page entered with a telegram which he delivered to Stoner. He tore it open, then he got up from his seat. Mrs. Renaud has regained consciousness, he said. Ah! Poirot sprang to his feet. Let us all go to Merlinville at once. A hurried departure was made forthwith. Stoner, at Jack's insistence, agreed to stay behind and do all that could be done for Bella Devine. Poirot, Jack Renaud, and I set off in the Renault car. The run took just over 40 minutes. As we approached the doorway of the Villa Marguerite, Jack Renaud shot a questioning glance at Poirot. How would it be if you went on first, to break the news to my mother that I am free? While you break it in person to Mademoiselle Martha, eh? Finished Poirot with a twinkle. But yes, by all means, I was about to propose such an arrangement myself. Jack Renaud did not wait for more. Stopping the car, he swung himself out and ran up the path to the front door. We went on in the car to the Villa Genevieve. Poirot, I said, do you remember how we arrived here that first day, and were met by news of Monsieur Renaud's murder? Ah, yes, truly. Not so long ago, either. But what a lot of things have happened since then, especially for you, mon ami. Poirot, what have you done about finding Dulcie? Calm yourself, Hastings. I arrange everything. You're being a precious long time about it, I grumbled. Poirot changed the subject. Then the beginning, now the end, he moralized as we rang the bell. And considered as a case, the end is profoundly unsatisfactory. Yes, indeed, I sighed. You are regarding it from the sentimental standpoint, Hastings. That was not my meaning. We will hope that Mademoiselle Bella will be dealt with leniently, and, after all, Jack Renaud cannot marry both the girls. I spoke from a professional standpoint. This is not a crime well ordered and regular, such as a detective delights in. This is mise en scène designed by Georges Canu. That indeed is perfect, but the denouement, ah no. A man killed by accident and a girl's fit of anger. Ah, indeed, what order and method is there in that? And in the midst of a fit of laughter on my part at Poirot's peculiarities, the door was opened by Francois. Poirot explained that he must see Mrs. Renaud at once, and the old woman conducted him upstairs. I remained in the salon. It was some time before Poirot reappeared. He was looking unusually grave. Vous voilà, Hastings, sacré tonnerre, but there are squalls ahead. What do you mean? I cried. I would hardly have credited it, said Poirot thoughtfully, but women are very unexpected. Here are Jack and Martha de Brille, I exclaimed, looking out of the window. Poirot bounded out of the room and met the young couple on the steps outside. Do not enter. It is better not. Your mother is very upset. I know, said Jack Renaud. I must go up to her at once. But no, I tell you, it is better not. But Martha and I. In any case, do not take Mademoiselle with you. Mount if you must, but you would be wise to be guided by me. A voice on the stairs behind made us all start. I thank you for your good offices, Monsieur Poirot, but I will make my own wishes clear. We stared in astonishment. Descending the stairs, leaning upon Lenny's arm, was Mrs. Renaud, her head still bandaged. The French girl was weeping and imploring her mistress to return to bed. Madame will kill herself. It is contrary to all the doctor's orders. But Mrs. Renaud came on. Mother, cried Jack, starting forward, but with a gesture she drove him back. I am no mother of yours. You are no son of mine. From this day and hour I renounce you. Mother, cried the lad, stupefied. For a moment she seemed to waver, to falter before the anguish in his voice. Poirot made a mediating gesture, but instantly she regained command of herself. Your father's blood is on your head. You are morally guilty of his death. You thwarted and defied him over this girl, and by your heartless treatment of another girl, you brought about his death. Go out from my house. Tomorrow, I intend to take such steps as shall make it certain you shall never touch a penny of his money. Make your way in the world as best you can with the help of the girl who is the daughter of your father's bitterest enemy." And slowly, painfully, she retraced her way upstairs. We were all dumbfounded, totally unprepared for such a demonstration. Jack Renaud, worn out with all he had already gone through, swayed and nearly fell. Perrault and I went quickly to his assistance. "He is overdone," murmured Perrault to Martha. "Where can we take him?" "But home, to the Villa Marguerite. We will nurse him, my mother and I. My poor Jack." We got the lad to the villa, where he dropped limply onto a chair in a semi-dazed condition. Perrault felt his head and hands. "He has fever. The long strain begins to tell. And now this shock on top of it. Get him to bed, and Hastings and I will summon a doctor." A doctor was soon procured. After examining the patient, he gave it as his opinion that it was simply a case of nerve strain. With perfect rest and quiet, the lad might be almost restored by the next day, but if excited, there was a chance of brain fever. It would be advisable for someone to sit up all night with him. Finally, having done all we could, we left him in the charge of Martha and her mother, and set out for the town. It was past our usual hour of dining, and we were both famished. The first restaurant we came to assuaged the pangs of hunger with an excellent omelette and an equally excellent entrecôte to follow. "And now for quarters for the night," said Perrault, when at length Café Noir had completed the meal. "Shall we try our old friend, the Hôtel d'Espans?" We traced our steps there without more ado. Yes, messieurs could be accommodated with 2 good rooms overlooking the sea. Then Perrault asked a question which surprised me. "Has an English lady, Miss Robinson, arrived?" "Yes, monsieur. She is in the little salon." "Ah!" "Perrault," I cried, keeping pace with him as he walked along the corridor, "who on earth is Miss Robinson?" Perrault beamed kindly on me. "It is that I have arranged you a marriage, Hastings." "But, I say—" "Bah!" said Perrault, giving me a friendly push over the threshold of the door. "Do you think I wish to trumpet aloud in Merlinville the name of Duveen?" It was indeed Cinderella who rose to greet us. I took her hands in both of mine. My eyes said the rest. Perrault cleared his throat. "Mes enfants," he said, "for the moment we have no time for sentiment. There is work ahead of us. Mademoiselle, were you able to do what I asked you?" In response, Cinderella took from her bag an object wrapped up in paper and handed it silently to Perrault. The latter unwrapped it. I gave a start, for it was the aeroplane dagger, which I understood she had cast into the sea. Strange how reluctant women always are to destroy the most compromising of objects and documents. "Très bien, mon enfant," said Perrault. "I am pleased with you. Go now and rest yourself. Hastings here and I have work to do. You shall see him tomorrow." "Where are you going?" asked the girl, her eyes widening. "You shall hear all about it tomorrow. Because wherever you're going, I'm coming too." "But mademoiselle—" "I'm coming too, I tell you." Perrault realized that it was futile to argue further. He gave in. "Come then, mademoiselle, but it will not be amusing. In all probability, nothing will happen." The girl made no reply. 20 minutes later we set forth. It was quite dark now, a close, oppressive evening. Perrault led the way out of the town, in the direction of the Villa Genevieve, but when he reached the Villa Marguerite, he paused. "I should like to assure myself that all goes well with Jack Renaud. Come with me, Hastings. Mademoiselle will perhaps remain outside. Madame de Briolle might say something which would wound her." We unlatched the gate and walked up the path. As we went round to the side of the house, I drew Perrault's attention to a window on the first floor. Thrown sharply on the blind was the profile of Martha de Briolle. "Ah," said Perrault, "I figure to myself that that is the room where we shall find Jack Renaud." Madame de Briolle opened the door to us. She explained that Jack was much the same, but perhaps we would like to see for ourselves. She led us upstairs and into the bedroom. Martha de Briolle was embroidering by a table with a lamp on it. She put her finger to her lips as we entered. Jack Renault was sleeping an uneasy, fitful sleep, his head turning from side to side, and his face still unduly flushed. "Is the doctor coming again?" asked Poirot in a whisper. "Not unless we sinned. He is sleeping. That is the great thing. Maman made him a tisane." She sat down again with her embroidery as we left the room. Madame de Briolle accompanied us. Who in the hell is calling me this time of night? She sat down again with her embroidery as we left the room. Madame de Briolle accompanied us down the stairs. Since I had learned of her past history, I viewed this woman with increased interest. She stood there with her eyes cast down, the same very faint, enigmatical smile that I remembered on her lips. And suddenly I felt afraid of her, as one might feel afraid of a beautiful, poisonous snake. "I hope we have not deranged you, madame," said Poirot politely as she opened the door for us to pass out. "Not at all, monsieur." "By the way," said Poirot, as though struck by an afterthought, "Monsieur Stoner has not been in Merlinville today, has he?" I could not at all fathom the point of this question, which I well knew to be meaningless as far as Poirot was concerned. Madame de Briolle replied quite composedly, "Not that I know of. He has not had an interview with Mrs. Renault." "How should I know that, monsieur?" "True," said Poirot. "I thought you might have seen him coming or going, that is all. Good night, madame." "Why?" I began. "No whys, Hastings. There will be time for that later." We rejoined Cinderella and made our way rapidly in the direction of the Villa Genevieve. Poirot looked over his shoulder once at the lighted window and the profile of Martha as she bent over her work. "He is being guarded at all events," he muttered. Arrived at the Villa Genevieve, Poirot took up his stand behind some bushes to the left of the drive, where, whilst enjoying a good view ourselves, we were completely hidden from sight. The villa itself was in total darkness. Everybody was without doubt in bed and asleep. We were almost immediately under the window of Mrs. Renault's bedroom, which window, I noticed, was open. It seemed to me that it was upon this spot that Poirot's eyes were fixed. "What are we going to do?" I whispered. "Watch. But I do not expect anything to happen for at least an hour, probably 2 hours, but his words were interrupted by a long, thin-drawn cry. "Help!" A light flashed up in the second room on the right-hand side of the house. The cry came from there, and even as we watched, there came a shadow on the blind as of two people struggling. "Mille tonnerres!" cried Poirot. "She must have changed her room." Dashing forward, he battered wildly on the front door. Then rushing to the tree in the flower bed, he swarmed up it with the agility of a cat. I followed him, as with a bound he sprang in through the open window. Looking over my shoulder, I saw Dulcie reaching the branch behind me. "Take care," I exclaimed. "Take care of your grandmother," retorted the girl. "This is child's play to me." Poirot had rushed through the empty room and was pounding on the door leading into the corridor. "Locked and bolted on the outside," he growled, "and it will take time to burst it open." The cries for help were getting noticeably fainter. I saw despair in Poirot's eyes. He and I together put our shoulders to the door. Cinderella's voice, calm and dispassionate, came from the window. "You'll be too late. I guess I'm the only one who can do anything." Before I could move a hand to stop her, she appeared to leap upward into space. I rushed and looked out. To my horror, I saw her hanging by her hands from the roof, propelling herself along by jerks in the direction of the lighted window. "Good heavens! She'll be killed!" I cried. "You forget. She's a professional acrobat, Hastings. It was the providence of the good God that made her insist on coming with us tonight. I only pray that she may be in time." "Ah!" A cry of absolute terror floated out onto the night as the girl disappeared through the right-hand window. Then in Cinderella's clear tones came the words, "No, you don't. I've got you, and my wrists are just like steel." At the same moment, the door of our prison was opened cautiously by Francois. Poirot brushed her aside unceremoniously and rushed down the passage to where the other maids were grouped round the further door. "It's locked on the inside, monsieur." There was the sound of a heavy fall within. After a moment or two, the key turned, and the door swung slowly open. Cinderella, very pale, beckoned us in. "She is safe?" demanded Poirot. "Yes, I was just in time." She was exhausted. Mrs. Renault was half sitting, half lying on the bed. She was gasping for breath. "Nearly strangled me," she murmured painfully. The girl picked up something from the floor and handed it to Perrault. It was a rolled-up ladder of silk rope, very fine, but quite strong. "A getaway," said Perrault, "by the window, whilst we were battering at the door." "Where is the other?" The girl stood aside and pointed. On the ground lay a figure wrapped in some dark material, a fold of which hid the face. "Dead?" She nodded. "I think so. Head must have struck the marble fender." "But who is it?" I cried. "The murderer of Monsieur Renault, Hastings, and the would-be murderer of Madame Renault." Puzzled and uncomprehending, I knelt down, and lifting the fold of cloth, looked into the dead, beautiful face of Martha de Breuil. Okay, that's a twist. I thought she was guarding him. What the hell? Chapter 28, Journey's End. I have confused memories of the further events of that night. Perrault seemed deaf to my repeated questions. He was engaged in overwhelming Francois with reproaches for not having told him of Mrs. Renault's change of sleeping quarters. I caught him by the shoulder, determined to attract his attention and make myself heard. "But you must have known," I expostulated. "You were taken up to see her this afternoon." Perrault deigned to attend to me for a brief moment. She had been wheeled on a sofa into the middle room, her boudoir, he explained. "But, monsieur," cried Francois, "Madame changed her room almost immediately after the crime. The associations, they were too distressing." "Then why was I not told?" vociferated Perrault, striking the table and working himself into a first-class passion. "I demand you, why was I not told? You are an old woman completely imbecile, and Lenny and Denise are no better. All of you are triple idiots. Your stupidity has nearly caused the death of your mistress. But for this courageous child—" I think he's a little pissed off. He broke off, and darting across the room to where the girl was bending over ministering to Mrs. Renault, he embraced her with Gallic fervor, slightly to my annoyance. I was aroused from my condition of mental fog by a sharp command from Perrault to fetch the doctor immediately on Mrs. Renault's behalf. After that, I might summon the police, and, he added, to complete my dudgeon, it will hardly be worth your while to return here. I shall be too busy to attend to you, and of mademoiselle here I make a garde malade. No idea what that means either. I retired with what dignity I could command. Having done my errands, I returned to the hotel. I understood next to nothing of what had occurred. The events of the night seemed fantastic and impossible. Nobody would answer my questions. Nobody had seemed to hear them. Angrily, I flung myself into bed and slept the sleep of the bewildered and utterly exhausted. I awoke to find the sun pouring in through the open windows, and Perrault, neat and smiling, sitting beside the bed. "Enfin, you wake! But it is that you are a famous sleeper, Hastings. Do you know that it is nearly 11 o'clock? I groaned and put a hand to my head. "I must have been dreaming," I said. "Do you know, I actually dreamt that we found Martha de Breuil's body in Mrs. Renault's room, and that you declared her to have murdered Mr. Renault? You were not dreaming. All that is quite true." "But Bella Duveen killed Mr. Renault." "Oh, no, Hastings, she did not. She said she did, yes, but that was to save the man she loved from the guillotine." "What?" "Remember Jack Renault's story. They both arrived on the scene at the same instant, and each took the other to be the perpetrator of the crime. The girl stares at him in horror, and then with a cry rushes away. But when she hears that the crime has been brought home to him, she cannot bear it, and comes forward to accuse herself and save him from certain death." Perrault leaned back in his chair and brought the tips of his fingers together in familiar style. "The case was not quite satisfactory to me," he observed judicially. "All along I was strongly under the impression that we were dealing with a cold-blooded and premeditated crime committed by someone who had been contented, very cleverly, with using Monsieur Renault's own plans for throwing the police off the track. The great criminal, as you may remember my remarking to you once, is always supremely simple. I nodded. Now, to support this theory, the criminal must have been fully cognizant of Mr. Renault's plans. That leads us to Madame Renault. But facts fail to support any theory of her guilt. Is there anyone else who might have known of them? Yes. From Martha de Brio's own lips, we have the admission that she overheard Monsieur Renault's quarrel with the tramp. If she could overhear that, there is no reason why she should not have heard everything else, especially if Monsieur and Madame Renault were imprudent enough to discuss their plans sitting on the bench. Remember how easily you overheard Martha's conversation with Jacques Renault from that spot. But what possible motive could Martha have for murdering Monsieur Renault, I argued. What motive? Money. Monsieur Renault was a millionaire several times over, and at his death, or so she and Jack believed, half that vast fortune would pass to his son. Let us reconstruct the scene from the standpoint of Martha de Briolle. Martha de Briolle overhears what passes between Renault and his wife. So far, he has been a nice little source of income to the de Briolle mother and daughter, but now he proposes to escape from their toils. At first, possibly, her idea is to prevent that escape. But a bolder idea takes its place, and one that fails to horrify the daughter of Jean Baroldi. At present, Monsieur Renault stands inexorably in the way of her marriage with Jack. If the latter defies his father, he will be a pauper, which is not at all to the mind of Mademoiselle Martha. In fact, I doubt if she has ever cared a straw for Jacques Renault. She can simulate emotion, but in reality she is of the same cold, calculating type as her mother. I doubt, too, whether she was really very sure of her hold over the boy's affections. She had dazzled and captivated him, but separated from her, as his father could so easily manage to separate him, she might lose him. But with Monsieur Renault dead, and Jack the heir to half his millions, the marriage can take place at once, and at a stroke she will attain wealth, not the beggarly thousands that have been extracted from them so far. And her clever brain takes in the simplicity of the thing. It is all so easy. Monsieur Renault is planning all the circumstances of his death. She has only to step in at the right moment and turn the farce into a grim reality. And here comes in the second point, which led me infallibly to Martha de Briolle. The dagger. Jacques Renault had 3 souvenirs made. One he gave to his mother, one to Bella Divine. Was it not highly probable that he had given the third one to Martha de Briolle? So then, to sum up, there were 4 points of note against Martha de Briolle. Martha de Briolle could have overheard Monsieur Renault's plans. Martha de Briolle had a direct interest in causing Monsieur Renault's death. Martha de Briolle was the daughter of the notorious Madame Baroldi, who, in my opinion, was morally and virtually the murderess of her husband, although it may have been George Ganou's hand which struck the actual blow. Martha de Briolle was the only person, besides Jacques Renault, likely to have the third dagger in her possession. Perrault paused and cleared his throat. Of course, when I learned of the existence of the other girl, Bella Divine, I realized that it was quite possible that she might have killed Monsieur Renault. The solution did not commend itself to me because, as I pointed out to you, Hastings, an expert such as I am likes to meet a foeman worthy of his steel. Still, one must take crimes as one finds them, not as one would like them to be. It did not seem very likely that Bella Divine would be wandering about carrying a souvenir paper knife in her hand. But of course she might have had some idea all the time of revenging herself on Jacques Renault. When she actually came forward and confessed to the murder, it seemed that all was over. And yet, I was not satisfied, mon ami. I was not satisfied. I went over the case again minutely, and I came to the same conclusion as before. If it was not Bella Divine, the only other person who could have committed the crime was Martha de Briolle, but I had not one single proof against her. And then you showed me that letter from Mademoiselle Dolci, and I saw a chance of settling the matter once for all. The original dagger was stolen by Dolce Divine and thrown into the sea, since, as she thought, it belonged to her sister. But if by any chance it was not her sister's, but the one given by Jack to Martha de Briolle, why then, Bella Divine's dagger would still be intact. I said no word to you, Hastings. It was no time for romance. But I sought out Mademoiselle Dolci, told her as much as I deemed needful, and set her to search among the effects of her sister. Imagine my elation when she sought me out, according to my instructions, as Miss Robinson, with the precious souvenir in her possession. In the meantime, I had taken steps to force Mademoiselle Martha into the open. By my orders, Mrs. Renault repulsed her son and declared her intention of making a will on the morrow, which should cut him off from ever enjoying a portion of his father's fortune. It was a desperate step, but a necessary one, and Madame Renault was fully prepared to take the risk, though unfortunately she also never thought of mentioning her change of room. I suppose she took it for granted that I knew. All happened as I thought. Martha de Brille made a last bold bid for the Renault millions, and failed. What absolutely bewilders me, I said, is how she ever got into the house without our seeing her. It seems an absolute miracle. We left her behind at Villa Marguerite, and we go straight to the Villa Genevieve, yet she is there before us. Ah, but we did not leave her behind. She was out of the Villa Marguerite by the back way, whilst we were talking to her mother in the hall. That is where, as the Americans say, she put it over on Hercule Poirot. But the shadow on the blind, we saw it from the road. Eh bien, when we looked up, Madame de Brille had just had time to run upstairs and take her place. Madame de Brille? Yes, one is old and one is young, one dark and one fair. But for the purpose of a silhouette on a blind, their profiles are singularly alike. Even I did not suspect, triple imbecile that I was. I thought I had plenty of time before me, that she would not try to gain admission to the villa until much later. She had brains, that beautiful Mademoiselle Martha. And her object was to murder Mrs. Renault? Yes, the whole fortune would then pass to her son. But it would have been suicide, mon ami. On the floor by Martha de Brille's body, I found a pad and a little bottle of chloroform and a hypodermic syringe containing a fatal dose of morphine. You understand? The chloroform first, then, when the victim is unconscious, the prick of the needle. By the morning, the smell of the chloroform has quite disappeared, and the syringe lies where it has fallen from Madame Renault's hand. What would he say, the excellent Monsieur Hotet? Poor woman, what did I tell you? The shock of joy was too much on top of the rest. Did I not say that I should not be surprised if her brain became unhinged? Altogether a most tragic case, the Renault case. However, Hastings, things did not go quite as Mademoiselle Martha had planned. To begin with, Madame Renault was awake and waiting for her. There is a struggle, but Madame Renault is terribly weak still. There is a last chance for Martha de Brille. The idea of suicide is at an end, but if she can silence Madame Renault with her strong hands, make a getaway with her little silk ladder whilst we are still battering on the inside of the further door, and be back at the Villa Marguerite before we return there, it will be hard to prove anything against her. But she was checkmated, not by Hercule Poirot, but by Le Petit Acrobat with her wrists of steel. I mused over the whole story. When did you first begin to suspect Martha de Brille, Poirot? When she told us she had overheard the quarrel in the garden? Poirot smiled. My friend, do you remember when we drove into Merlinville that first day, and the beautiful girl we saw standing at the gate? You asked me if I had not noticed a young goddess, and I replied to you that I had seen only a girl with anxious eyes. That is how I have thought of Martha de Brille from the beginning, the girl with the anxious eyes. Why was she anxious? Not on Jack Renault's behalf, for she did not know then that he had been in Merlinville the previous evening. By the way, I exclaimed, how is Jack Renault? Much better. He is still at the Villa Marguerite, but Madame de Brille has disappeared. The police are looking for her. Was she in with her daughter, do you think? We shall never know. Madame is a lady who can keep her secrets, and I doubt very much if the police will ever find her. Has Jack Renault been told? Not yet. It will be a terrible shock to him. Naturally. And yet, do you know, Hastings, I doubt if his heart was ever seriously engaged. So far we have looked upon Bella Duveen as a siren, and Martha de Brille as the girl he really loved. But I think that if we reverse the terms, we should come nearer to the truth. Martha de Brille was very beautiful. She set herself to fascinate Jack, and she succeeded. But remember his curious reluctance to break with the other girl. And see how he was willing to go to the guillotine rather than implicate her. I have a little idea that when he learns the truth, he will be horrified, revolted, and his false love will wither away. What about Gerard? He has a crisis of the nerves, that one. He has been obliged to return to Paris. We both smiled. Perrault proved a fairly true prophet. When at length the doctor pronounced Jack Renaud strong enough to hear the truth, it was Perrault who broke it to him. The shock was indeed terrific. Yet Jack rallied better than I could have supposed possible. His mother's devotion helped him to live through those difficult days. The mother and son were inseparable now. There was a further revelation to come. Perrault had acquainted Mrs. Renaud with the fact that he knew her secret, and had represented to her that Jack should not be left in ignorance of his father's past. To hide the truth, never does it avail, madam. Be brave and tell him everything. With a heavy heart, Mrs. Renaud consented, and her son learned that the father he had loved had been in actual fact a fugitive from justice. A halting question was promptly answered by Perrault. Reassure yourself, Monsieur Jack. The world knows nothing. As far as I can see, there is no obligation for me to take the police into my confidence. Throughout the case I have acted, not for them, but for your father. Justice overtook him at last, but no one needs ever know that he and George Canoe were one and the same. There were, of course, various points in the case that remained puzzling to the police, but Perrault explained things in so plausible a fashion that all query about them was gradually stilled. Shortly after we got back to London, I noticed a magnificent model of a foxhound adorning Perrault's mantelpiece. In answer to my inquiring glance, Perrault nodded. "Mais oui, I got my 500 francs. Is he not a splendid fellow? I call him Gerard." So he used the money he won off the guy to buy an insulting statue of him, and named it, or a statue of a foxhound, named it after Gerard. I love it. A few days later, Jack Renaud came to see us with a resolute expression on his face. "Monsieur Perrault, I've come to say goodbye. I'm sailing for South America almost immediately. My father had large interests over the continent, and I mean to start a new life out there." "You go alone, Monsieur Jack?" "My mother comes with me, and I shall keep Stoner on as my secretary. He likes out-of-the-way parts of the world." "No one else goes with you?" Jack flushed. "You mean?" "A girl who loves you very dearly, who has been willing to lay down her life for you." "How could I ask her?" muttered the boy. "After all that has happened, how could I go to her and— Oh, what sort of a lame story could I tell?" "Les femmes, they have a wonderful genius for manufacturing crutches for stories like that." "Yes, but I've been such a damned fool." "So have all of us, at one time or another," observed Perrault philosophically. But Jack's face had hardened. "There's something else. I'm my father's son. Would anyone marry me knowing that?" "You are your father's son, you say. Hastings here will tell you that I believe in heredity." "Well then, wait. I know a woman of courage and endurance, capable of great love, of supreme self-sacrifice." The boy looked up. His eyes softened. "My mother." "Yes, you are your mother's son as well as your father's. Go then to Mademoiselle Bella. Tell her everything, keep nothing back, and see what she will say." Jack looked irresolute. Go to her as a boy no longer, but a man bowed by the fate of the past, and the fate of today, but looking forward to a new and wonderful life. Ask her to share it with you. You may not realize it, but your love for each other has been tested in the fire and not found wanting. You have both been willing to lay down your lives for each other. And what of Captain Arthur Hastings, humble chronicler of these pages? There is some talk of his joining the Renauds on a ranch across the seas, but for the end of this story, I prefer to go back to a morning in the garden of the Villa Genevieve. "I can't call you Bella," I said, "since it isn't your name, and Dulcie seems so unfamiliar. So it's got to be Cinderella. Cinderella married the prince, you remember. I'm not a prince, but—" She interrupted me. "Cinderella warned him, I'm sure. You see, she couldn't promise to turn into a princess. She was only a little scullion, after all." "It's the prince's turn to interrupt," I interpolated. "Do you know what he said?" "No." "Hell," said the prince, and kissed her, and I suited the action to the word. Aw, Hastings finally got a girl. "And she wasn't entangled with anybody else?" And she wasn't destitute or desperate. And for sure, she's smarter than him. So I kind of worry why she's choosing him. She's too smart for that guy. Oh, but that, I believe, will likely be the last Agatha Christie we can read this year, as the others are not in the public domain. So we need a new book to read for midweek mysteries. So please hop on the Discord, find a book, stick it in the recommendation channels, or not the book request channel, and let me know what you guys would like to hear, because definitely like to read some more mysteries for you guys. Suppose we could read some Sherlock Holmes if you like, to kind of compare and contrast the two detectives, which could be fun. But let's see. We've got an Alex streaming. I think maybe we should go raid the Alex, since he was listening to us on his stream, and return the favor. Hey, Gecko. Did you just get here, or have you been here for a while? How are you? Bad timing. Yeah, we just finished the book, and we're going to go raid Alex. Looks like he's in the middle of a match right now. Oh, I thought you said it was all settled. Are you going to get it repaired? All right, let's go get Alex. And away we go. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining me, and I hope you enjoyed the story. And we will catch all of you for Friday's stream. Well, there's also the subscriber stream on Thursday, I believe. I'll have to double check the schedule. But have an excellent day, morning, evening, whatever it is. And remember, no matter where you are, what time it is, it's obviously bedtime.